Your brain has secret windows of opportunity that close forever, and you are missing the most important one right now. These windows are not metaphors. They are actual biological periods when your brain can develop capabilities that become nearly impossible to acquire once the window closes. Miss these critical periods, and you will spend the rest of your life struggling to learn things that would have been effortless if you had known when your brain was most receptive. But understanding these windows gives you the power to maximize your potential at any age and help others around you develop extraordinary abilities during their optimal learning periods. Neuroscientists have discovered that your brain does not develop uniformly throughout your life. Instead, it goes through distinct phases where different regions and capabilities are maximally plastic and responsive to learning. During these critical periods, your brain can literally rewire itself in ways that would require massive effort or be impossible during other phases of development. This is not just about children learning faster. This is about specific biological windows when certain types of learning happen almost automatically versus requiring enormous conscious effort. The most famous example is language acquisition. Children have a critical period for learning languages that lasts from birth to puberty. During this window, they can acquire multiple languages simultaneously with perfect pronunciation and grammar without conscious effort. Their brains are in a state of passive neuroplasticity where language patterns get absorbed automatically through exposure. After puberty, this window begins closing, and language learning becomes progressively more difficult and requires active, conscious effort. Perfect pronunciation becomes nearly impossible to achieve because the brain regions responsible for sound discrimination have already specialized and lost their flexibility. This is why children who grow up bilingual speak both languages like natives, while adults who learn second languages almost always retain accents and make grammatical errors despite years of study. The language window is just one of many critical periods that determine your brain's developmental potential. Musical ability has its own critical period that peaks between ages 3 to 7, when the brain can develop perfect pitch and extraordinary musical processing abilities. Mathematical reasoning has optimal development windows during specific age ranges when abstract thinking capabilities are forming. Social and emotional intelligence have critical periods during early childhood when the brain learns to read facial expressions, understand social cues, and develop empathy. But here is what most people do not understand about these windows. They can be partially reopened or extended through specific techniques and environmental conditions, even in adulthood. Your brain retains more plasticity throughout life than previously believed, but accessing this plasticity requires understanding how to trigger the biological conditions that existed during critical periods. This is called induced neuroplasticity, and it represents one of the most exciting frontiers in neuroscience and human development. The key to reopening critical windows is understanding what made them possible in the first place. Critical periods occur when your brain is in states of high plasticity characterized by specific neurochemical conditions, including elevated BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, balanced neurotransmitter levels, and optimal stress hormone patterns. These conditions can be recreated artificially through targeted interventions that trick your brain into returning to critical period states. Intensive immersion experiences can partially reopen language windows by creating the same total environmental exposure that naturally occurs during childhood. Physical exercise increases BDNF production and can enhance neuroplasticity at any age. Certain types of meditation and mindfulness practices create brain states similar to childhood learning states. Novel experiences and environmental enrichment can trigger neuroplastic changes that were thought to be impossible in adult brains. The most important insight is that timing is everything in brain development and optimization. The same learning experience that produces extraordinary results during a critical window might produce minimal results outside that window, while intensive interventions that would be unnecessary during critical periods can help reopen windows that have partially closed. This means you need different strategies for different life phases, rather than using the same approaches regardless of your brain's current developmental state. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have natural talents that others cannot develop despite massive effort? Often the difference is that their brains were exposed to optimal learning conditions during critical windows when those abilities were most developable. People with perfect pitch were exposed to music during early childhood. People who are extraordinarily social had rich interpersonal experiences during critical emotional development periods. Understanding critical periods also reveals why traditional education often fails to develop human potential. Schools typically teach subjects according to administrative convenience rather than biological readiness. They might introduce abstract mathematics before the brain regions responsible for abstract thinking are fully developed, or fail to provide language exposure during optimal acquisition windows. This mismatch between educational timing and biological readiness creates unnecessary struggle and limits the development of capabilities that could have been developed more easily with better timing. For parents and educators, understanding critical periods provides a roadmap for maximizing children's developmental potential. The key is providing rich, varied experiences during the appropriate windows, rather than trying to force learning during inappropriate developmental phases. For adults, understanding critical periods explains why some learning feels effortless, while other learning requires enormous effort, and provides strategies for accessing neuroplasticity states that can partially compensate for missed critical periods. The most successful people often either had optimal experiences during critical developmental windows, or have learned to artificially recreate critical period conditions to continue developing capabilities throughout their lives. They understand that the brain is not fixed after childhood, but continues to be moldable by those who know how to access its plastic potential. Starting today, you can begin identifying which critical windows are currently open in your life or the lives of people around you. Children in your family might be in optimal windows for language, music, or social development. You might be in an optimal window for career development, relationship skills, or creative abilities that you do not recognize. The key is matching learning opportunities to biological readiness, rather than trying to force development during inappropriate phases. If you want to learn how to identify and maximize the critical windows that are currently available in your life, and how to artificially reopen windows that have closed, follow this channel and turn on notifications. I am going to show you exactly how to use neuroscience timing principles to develop capabilities that most people believe are impossible to acquire. What ability do you wish you had developed during an earlier critical period? And how old were you when you first tried to learn it? Share your experiences in the comments below.